Welcome to Slongan. I'm your host, Janine Blake. On last week's program, we brought you part one of the Regional Justice Conference that was held here at the Midnight Sun Recreation Complex in Inuvik. On today's program, we'll be looking at more presentations. We'll also be speaking with the youth that sits on the youth panel here in Inuvik, and we'll look at some of the community reports from the Outlying Communities Justice Committee members. The Beaufort Delta region is comprised of 8 communities: Inuvik, Aklavik, Tuk, Fort McPherson, Sigachik, Paulatuk, Sax Harbor, and Holman. Each of the communities sent an elder, a youth, and representatives to the Justice Conference.
Welcome to the second day of our conference.
John Nash is the coordinator for the Inuvik Justice Committee. He was one of the organizers of the conference.
The theme for our conference is Restorative Justice, a Community Perspective. And hopefully, over the next 3 days, you guys can take back some information to your communities on how to start up justice committees, or if you have one that's already functioning, how to keep it going.
The 8th presentation was given by Lawrence Norbert, negotiator for the Nguitsin for the Beaufort Delta Self-Government Office. Lawrence gave a presentation on the role of self-government in relation to community justice.
What does self-government, what does it offer? For one thing, it offers us the opportunity and the ability to manage our own resources. We also would have the ability to make laws that meets the needs of our people. We would be able to carry out, to make and carry out decisions at community levels. And hopefully, in the long run, that we would be able to create, provide, and to control programs and services that are culturally sensitive and community-based. The negotiators were able to convince their counterparts that that there were several aspects of justice and policing that were relevant. One of them was enforcement officers, that the Beaufort Delta governments would have the authority to appoint enforcement officers to enforce its laws. These officers would have powers that are similar to other bylaw officers across the NWT. And that word bylaw is the clincher. The chapter sets out too that in terms of punishments in courts, that the Beaufort Delta governments can make laws about how people breaking its laws should be punished by fine or imprisonment. However, those cannot be any more than under comparable federal or territorial laws. And that any court hearing those matters would be the territorial or federal courts. There would be processes that would be set out where laws can be appealed and where residents can appeal any decisions made by the employees or an employee of the Beaufort Delta government in accordance with any law or policy. There's a provision that sets out for alternative dispute resolution processes so that residents can use other means to resolve disputes other than going to court. However, this will not replace the right to also go to court. And if there's any parties using the alternative dispute resolution or the ADR as it's known in other places, that all parties must agree to use that. In terms of policing, the regional government may enter into policing agreements, and that it also gives the AIP also states that the government of the Northwest Territories must consult the Beaufort Delta government when it's preparing legislation regarding delivery of police services, as well as other aspects of administration of justice, such as correctional facilities. Beaufort Delta government may make an agreement with Canada to deliver federal correctional services or to establish correctional facilities. These must reflect Gwich'in or Inuvialuit culture, and they must be in line with federal correctional standards. In terms of before initialing the final agreement, the parties must discuss issues relating to the delivery of policing programs. Ladies and gentlemen, what's the perspective here? What do you see? Well, for me, I see my perspective is that community justice has a low, if any, priority. They may say that that community justice committees, community justice, restorative justice is the next best thing since sliced bannock. But when it comes to financial commitments, I say, and I challenge them to say, to show in financial terms what priority they place on community justice. What can our role in self-government be? What do we see ourselves doing in community justice? For one thing, when you see that you can't have your own police force, when you can't have your own court system, what does that say? What does it say when the Department of Justice absolutely refuses to hand over control to Aboriginal people? Those aspects dealing with the administration of justice. When they cannot control and administer correctional services, policing, or have their own courts. What's the perception? Perhaps as negotiators, we could renew negotiations to include the total administration of justice. Might be a hard battle. I don't think they'd want to reopen that. There's always the option of political advocacy, that you as community justice committee members or coordinators to solicit support from your political leadership to advance your cause at the interim regional council, so that the government of Northwest Territories can hear that it's not just the negotiators that are saying this, but it's the people that are saying this. But you have chiefs, you have mayors, you also have your members of legislative assembly. But you can ask them, why is it that corrections has millions and millions of dollars and community justice has only thousands? 734,000, that's for the entire Northwest Territories. And when you think of how much actually comes to the Delta, what's the government's priority when it comes to community justice?
When Swangan returns after these messages, we'll bring you more of the Regional Justice Conference. We're back with the Beaufort Delta Regional Justice Conference that was held here in Inuvik.
We made some indeed required changes within our own department. And as a result, we now have an Assistant Deputy Minister of Corrections. We also have an Assistant Deputy Minister who is now also the Assistant Deputy Minister for the Attorney General's Office. We also hope to implement a plan where every community will eventually have the resources to hire at least a part-time coordinator. Also have access, and I use the word access, to sufficient resources to help develop programs that are designed to meet those justice needs. I expressed that a good example of this is the Nunavik Justice Committee, which expanded their programs over the years to include diversion programs, which I think the lady ahead of me eloquently spoke of. Other programs include Fine Options, Community Services, a land program, crime prevention, and most recently, they have taken on the responsibility of delivering a victim services program. This is very encouraging for our department, and I want to commend the Nunavik Justice Committee and all the other committees and committee members that are here. As committee members and the department, we are not alone in our efforts. We also have the assistance of the federal departments, many of them within Justice Canada. The main one is the Aboriginal Justice Strategy, I believe Shirley had spoken to earlier this morning, in terms of some of our own internal strategies. One is that we need to look very closely at our community constable program from a policing perspective that is being delivered through a partnership with the Ministry of Community Affairs, the community, the RCMP, and also with the Solicitor General. The court workers continue to provide service in the communities in a way that meets the community's unique needs. A dedicated probation service program has been in operation for over a year now, and more recently, the female young offenders facility here in Nunavik is being built, and staff training is continuing to be underway. Finally, I want to mention a memorandum of understanding that we signed with the Beaufort Delta Regional Council, and I'm pleased to see Charles and his staff, Vince as well, Jim, Andre, and a number of others. If I missed anyone else, under the leadership of Bob Simpson, I want to congratulate you on the hard work. But the MOU was signed for the supervision of the Regional Justice Coordinator position within the Community Justice Division. One of the primary purposes of the MOU is to increase awareness of options available for the community justice activities for all the communities in the Beaufort Delta. Overall, I believe the future looks very promising in terms of the number of justice initiatives, and that we are in place to deliver other initiatives within your communities.
When Slangen returns after these messages, we'll bring you more of the Regional Justice Conference. We're back with the Beaufort Delta Regional Justice Conference that was held here in Nunavik.
It's a learning process, and I hope that this type of forum continues. To me, it should be on a yearly basis and have more people join in, because I'm finding restorative justice and some of the people within the communities are not too sure what it's really about. And the present system doesn't really work, and this is a better approach, I think. It reflects the values of the people, and that's a big thing.
I think I learned from both. The conference itself was very informative, which I can bring back to the community, and some things that were presented. And I think just listening to the other communities on their concerns and their committee reports was something interesting too. There's ups and downs, but I think we'll learn from those. I guess all the information that I've gathered and try to present it to our committee, I guess as a start, and just work from there, hopefully. Yeah.
Well, I think there was quite a few issues that were covered here, and I think the major ones that related to our community was the Youth Justice Committee, and also the presentation on self-government was also an important one. I feel that one good thing that came out of it is that there was information flow and that there was some feedback as well, right?
I am the SAO in Sax Harbor, and I am the acting coordinator because the CJC in Sax Harbor is has just been initialized, and so funding is still being solidified, and so the coordinator position is still in the process. The selection of the coordinator position.
Can you tell us what you learned from the Justice Conference here in Inuvik?
Well, the presentations were very helpful. They are going to, the delegates from Sax Harbor will go back to brief the committee, and there's been a broad range of discussions, some of them directly relating to our responsibilities. Some of them is more complicated and will be less, will have less of an impact at our level, because our level is a lot smaller, our communities are a lot smaller. But overall, I think the conference is good. One of the primary things that we've discussed at our community level was workshops and training. And I think this is a good start. It's definitely only going to make a dent as to our responsibilities and our policies, but it's definitely going to be helpful.
What did you learn from being able to network with Justice Committee members in the other communities?
Well, we learned a lot about funding. We learned about roles and responsibilities, policies. We also learned about some of the problems that other communities are having. Other communities are having problems very similar to ours, but there are issues that are not as similar, and that's definitely been good exposure for the Sax Harbor CJC delegates.
That everybody from the communities, from the Beaufort Delta communities, are having the same problems, like no funding and lack of resources, lack of training. But most of the communities here are trying to set up their justice committees. Some are already in place, and like what we're finding out is that, like in Tuck, for instance, we do have a justice committee that's been going on for about 9 years, and we're short members. Like we have 4 members, and like we had a presentation here from Yvonne Carpenter that was talking about volunteer and just the process on how to get volunteers interested. So when we go back to Tuck from here, what we'll do is we'll probably go door to door or go person to person and over coffee and just ask if they're interested in sitting on our committee, because it's a pretty dynamic committee and we can do lots for our community. A lot of people, like elderly, people that's been on the committee for a long time, and what we were saying, one of the suggestions was that a community that's already set up could go to another community and help them set it up, because there's some communities here that are still struggling and haven't had their first meeting, or did have their first meeting but not much input. So that's one of the things that came out of here, which is pretty good. So we'll be looking at that today. Well, don't give up, and just like I said, Tuck, like we're kind of ahead because we do have a justice committee set up, but mostly just to try to utilize your leadership and youth and elders and promote them and to get involved in this committee.
We're kind of new in the Justice Committee too, and it was nice to come here because there's so many different communities here, and we have so many speakers that talk about the justice, how the Justice Committee could help in the community. And that's what I'm learning, and by listening to the other communities that are coming with their report, what they are doing. So that helped me.
What are you going to bring back to McPherson with you?
Well, I'm sitting on the Justice Committee, and I'm going to bring all this information back to the committee. And when we have our meeting, we'll go over. Victor and I and one youth are here from McPherson, so we're all going to get together and go over it. Like the information that I'm getting from here, I'll take it back to McPherson with the Justice Committee group, and then we'll talk on it.
Since we were a committee one time, and we went through pretty well some of the things that we brought up here, that was brought up here. But another thing is, what is good about it is youth are coming in. Youth are coming in. That's what at home I keep talking about it at home, that the youth are the ones that should be coming into everything else, because they're the ones that are the future people. They have to learn now as they're growing up, not wait till later on, which is true. It is true. It's really, they have to learn now. I talk to my kids at home, the small ones. I said, look, one time your mom and dad were small like you kids. I said they went to education, continued with education. Now they're up there in the office doing all the work they're doing. Someday your little ones are going to be like that. And you have to just keep it in your mind. You have to listen to us when we talk to you, and listen to your teacher, because when you go to school, your teacher are like your parents, which is another thing too. You have to talk to them like that to make them understand that they have to listen. Which is a really important thing. Another thing right here, I learned from different communities how they're going about their justice. From there we can pick up and learn a little more of ways. Although we had our own one time and we were doing really good with it. Gary Beatty used to be living here in Inuvik. He used to come up and sit with us and talk to us about new things and different things, which helped us a lot. But we didn't have no youth with us. But now, like I said, we have to get the youth coming into everything. Not only this way they have to learn now in their early age. So that's a real important thing for our generation now.
The current justice system is not designed to assist the offender to understand how the crime affects victims and their families. It does not assist the victim in finding closure and justice. The current system does not reflect Indigenous Aboriginal values. The community justice system focuses on restorative justice. It focuses on bringing the victim and the offender together to talk about the effects of the crime. That was our program for this week. Thank you for watching, Swanger. I'm your host, Janine Blake, and I'll see you next week.